We're going live. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Rock Fantasy Files. We're here for one of our panel discussions tonight. And we're going to be talking about, I've asked my guests tonight, actually, I'm messing this up already, to tell us about their favorite albums from the band called The Who. I picked this topic for tonight. One of the great, and of course, one of the greats in classic rock, the British Invasion, back in the day, along with the Stones and the Beatles coming to the States and bringing that style of music. And with one of rock's greatest frontmen, Mr. Roger Daltrey, original bass player, of course, John Entwistle, Pete Townsend on guitar, and one of my favorite drummers of all time, Mr. Keith Moon. So welcome everyone to the show. I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves, starting with Lou tonight. We'll go around. Lou.
Hey guys, thanks again for having me. And Steve, it's always a blast doing these with you guys. Lou Calderola, drummer with Rush Tribute, Limelight, Zappa Tribute, the Furious Bongos, and metal band Soundscape.
And then we have David down here in the corner. David, say hello and introduce yourself, please.
My name is David Blampied. I'm a drummer in a Led Zeppelin tribute band. That's basically the extent of my...
Step again. And then we're moving over to Mr. Will Carroll, who's been pretty much a regular on our shows, but he can introduce himself tonight. Will, say hello.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Will Carroll. I play drums in a bunch of bands, but the one that's probably the best known is Death Angel.
And then we have Mr. Martin Popoff. Martin, first time on the Rock Fantasy Files, a warm welcome.
Yes, thank you very much for having me here. So yeah, Martin Popoff, I write a bunch of heavy metal books, martinpopoff.com. I'm a regular on Pete's show. We've got a podcast called History in 5 Songs with Martin Popoff and a YouTube channel ourselves called The Contrarians.
Excellent. And Peter Pardo, of course, doesn't need an introduction. Sea of Tranquility, Hudson Valley Squares Monday night. I'm a regular on his program, and it's always a pleasure to have him hop over onto my channel. And of course, John McAtee, Incantation. I'm introducing him. He's been doing a bunch of great interviews on the channel for us, and I applaud that. So we'll get started off tonight, and we'll go with our third favorite album. I guess I'll start off with Martin because he is our first time guest, and I'm going to go with you first, Martin.
Okay, well, I have a pretty strange choice here. I hope this doesn't upset a lot of people, but I'll probably get some complaints, but I'm actually going with Endless Wire as my third favorite Who album. Ever since this came out, 2006, I loved it immediately when it came out. It was so disorienting, though, with this whole idea with the wire and glass mini opera. But there is really no mini opera on this thing. Essentially, what happens is they start off with a bunch of regular Who songs. Now, granted, they're pretty acoustic. They're pretty mellow. I love Mike Post's theme. Anything with a little bit of drums, like a full proper song, is great on here. But I love all the introspective Pete stuff on here. And then when it gets to this mini opera, it's just basically more Who songs, but they're all shorter. So they do a bunch of short songs, good catchy stuff like We Got a Hit on here. I love Tea and Theater, Trilby's piano with that Only One Jaime and all this kind of stuff, like bizarre, right? But I just found this record really creative. I love, like I say, the mellow stuff into the songs. There's like literally 21 songs on here, or 19. Apparently the We Gotta Hit extended version, Endless Wire extended version aren't apparently on every version of this thing. This one even has a DVD with it. But and I'm not as crazy to say that I just love only later Who or anything, because I really don't like that new Who album all that much.
Okay.
But I really love this one immediately when it came out. So there you go, my third, Endless Wire.
Well, a different choice. It's not in my top three, so I think that's why we've got all different choices coming on. I'm going to move over on my screen to Mr. John McAtee next.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my number 3 brings me back to being 12 years old in junior high school, and it was the time when they were, I guess, breaking up for the first time originally. And that album just listening to it just brings me back to that time. And that's what's great about music, is it just brings you back to that time when you heard it and stuff. I mean, so yeah, I'm basically picking. It's hard. I know it's a strange one for most people because, it doesn't have Keith Moon on drums. It has Kenny Jones on drums, I think. But I grew up with that album. That was like, junior high school is like the prime time to get into music and stuff like that. And I just remember, Who was kind of like the cool band in school to like, and since they were breaking up, or it was supposed to be their last tour and stuff like that, like the hype was really big around it and stuff. And I was a fan of the album before that too. But yes, I just have to pick that album just more for the memories of the time, I mean, actually a lot of my Who memories are from that, 81, 82, 83 era of the Who. It's because, it's my junior high school years. And that's, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Cool. We've got two odd choices so far, in my brain at least. And I'm going to move over to Lou. Lou, welcome to the show. And what can you pull up out of your bag of tricks for this?
All right. Yeah. Like I said to you, when you asked me about the Who at first, I just figured, we're just going to chat about the Who. And then I actually read it this morning and went, he said 3 albums. I better do my homework. So I guess for my third, I'm noticing all 3 of my albums too come right in a stream. I guess so. I had an era which was big for the Who for me. So going number 3, I hope it doesn't have to always be studio albums. For me, number 3 would be Live at Leeds.
Okay.
The fire that they played with on that. That was one of my favorite live albums growing up. For a long, long time, just the versions of the tunes that they did on that. Plus you have the entire version of Tommy pretty much on there. But even their cover songs on that album were really got me. Their version of Summertime Blues to me is that's my favorite version, I think, of Summertime Blues of any artist's cover of it. And Young Man Blues, still one of my favorite Who songs there. That Live at Leeds version. There you go.
There we go.
That Live at Leeds version of Young Man. That'll be my number 3, definitely Live at Leeds.
It's the version with all this stuff in it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
All the paper goods they stuck in it, right? Yeah.
Well, moving over to Dave. Dave, welcome to the show tonight.
Thank you. I don't have any props because of ongoing litigation with Columbia House. That's
Columbia House
from the 80s. But my number 3 pick is going to be Tommy, based solely on Overture. I think that the opening of that album is it's basically a word of how albums should start. It's absolutely wonderful. I like thank you. I think that the flow of the album is remarkable, and that's pretty much it. I'm just a big fan of Overture. I think it's also too is should humor be in music is answered in this album too, because it's just some of the stuff that they do in the albums is pretty humorous, so
yeah,
I'm gonna go with Tommy for sure.
All right, great choice. Mr. Will Carroll coming to us from out in California. Welcome to the show, Will.
Hey. Obviously, Live at Leeds is the best Who album. I mean, I didn't pick any live albums though, but I agree that Live at Leeds is the shit, obviously. But my number 3 choice is the Who Sell Out. I love the concept behind the album, like you're listening to the BBC in the mid 60s with all the commercials and jingles, but the songs too. The opening track, Armonia City in the Sky, is it's their half-assed attempt at being a psych band, but their half-assed attempt at being a psych band is 100 times better than bands who are really serious about it. So, I mean, just imagine if they were really, really going for it. But yeah, I think it's the most unique album in the catalog, and that's not why I like it though. But it has like a very serious surf rock vibe to it sometimes, and I just love the opening track, man. The opening track alone is my favorite Who song, so that's the one I'm going with.
Awesome, thanks. Mr. Pardo, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Have you heard of this band
Sorry, I
before,
had to
The
get up
Who?
before. I went to go grab my props because I'm like, oh crap, I knew I forgot something here. So
Hey,
I
you're a
literally
busy
was
man.
jumping off the Sydney show to come on yours, and it's like I didn't have time. But so I
Uh-huh.
generally, when we do these sort of things, I don't pick live albums because if I did, they would automatically be my favorite. So, but I do want to give props to two of them, and one was already mentioned. So the Who Live at Leeds, the deluxe version with almost the entire Tommy, is one of the greatest live albums of all time, and I believe this band was always better live than they were in the studio. They were amazing in the studio, but almost as good as that is the entire Live at the Isle of Wight festival,
Oh, yeah.
which is absolutely incredible. And if you haven't seen the DVD, the video of this, it's amazing performance. But that being said, I just wanted to throw that out there. So
Excellent.
what's really weird about this is like my top three could all be number one. So I'm like sitting here, I'm like, which one do I put at number three? Does it even matter? I don't know, because you ask me tomorrow, I'll change my mind probably. But I'm going to go with Quadrophenia at number three. Could be my number two, could be my number one later, any other time. I mean, these guys, Townsend knew how to write concept albums back in the day. And this guy's songwriting was at, from Tommy through to arguably the Who by Numbers, right? But specifically those albums in between. And man, what a great double album. What a great concept. There's just so many epic songs on here. I mean, The Real Me, Love Reign Over Me. I mean, I'm the One, Dirty John, Punk and the Godfather, 5:15. I mean, so many legendary Who songs on here. The drumming by Keith Moon is off the charts on this album. The vocals are great. Just love it. It's good. It's rocking. It's memorable. And that's my number three.
Excellent. I guess I get to go with my number three now. I'm going to talk a little bit about the band before I get into my number three. My first time seeing them was at New York Shea Stadium. And my wife and I were just married, and I think we're just married or just getting married. It was that's the year I got married, and we were like, wow, the Who are breaking up. It's a farewell tour. We might not ever see him again. We better go get tickets. So we went to Shea Stadium, and I guess, and we got to see him way out in left field. And, you couldn't even see anything. It was before big screens, hardly anything else. And it was an experience, but, it was now I got to see them again. Of course, so much different seeing them live now than it was back when they were a four-piece. It was like I saw them at the Prudential Center in Newark on the Who Hits 50 tour, and I still enjoyed myself with it, but it just wasn't, I never got to see them with Keith Moon and the original four lineup, and of course, that was what I was more into than anything else. I did get to see Roger Daltrey at the same venue doing the Tommy album, which he, was his solo act. And again, I saw him at Bethel Woods Amphitheater up here in New York, which is located at the original Woodstock site for those that aren't familiar. And that was actually the first time that he had returned to that site since he played the Woodstock Festival. So I thought that was kind of a big deal. And I enjoyed it immensely seeing him do the Tommy records with a solo band, but that's my story about seeing the Who and seeing Daltrey and everything else. My third favorite album is Who's Next. I'm going cookie cutter with this, I guess. I'm not digging in too deep, but I mean, it's celebrating its 50th anniversary this August. From the amazing Baba O'Reilly to The Bargain, which I love. I love My Wife. I mean, it's almost like a perfect album. The Song Is Over is one of the most beautiful Who songs I think they've ever did. Going Mobile, of course, Behind Blue Eyes, and of course the the iconic Won't Get Fooled Again. So that's my number three album, 1971's Who's Next. We're back to
that same show, Steve.
What's
Okay.
that?
So
I was at that same show.
Yeah, you were there, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah. That was great.
So my number two choice is Who by Numbers. Been
Oh.
playing this a lot lately. 1975, the return of Glyn Johns. The band was kind of very despondent. Pete was wondering, am I too old to rock and roll? They were tired. They were fighting. It took a long time to make. But one interesting thing about this album is that there's very John Entwistle is not very busy on it, and he's not very buzzy on it. It's just got very behaved bass, which is kind of funny. But what I also like about this record is it's kind of like mid-volume Who. It's full band Who, but there's a lot of acoustic guitar massaged in with things, and then there's mellow songs as well. I love Slip Kid's a great heavy Who song, heavy enough. However Much I Booze is a beautiful mellow one. Squeeze Box is funny. Imagine a Man is a great mellow one here. I don't like Success Story. Blue, Red, and Gray with Pete playing along with the ukulele, talking about people who love being up at night or up in the morning or whatever. Really, really cool one. How Many Friends is a really good one with that big how many friends do I really got to it. Just like banger after banger on this. I was going to go Quadrophenia, but I took a good hard look and went through the songs and realized, you know what? I think that's getting a little bit of the double album cheat to it. And then they following up with this, I thought this was just a perfectly good Who album, not much keyboards or anything like that, but just a lot of acoustic guitar and Pete and just great songs start to finish.
That's Entwistle's artwork on the cover.
That's right. Yes. And he talks about how he was paid 32 pounds to do this or whatever. He wanted to get paid. Everybody took a try at it. It's pretty cool artwork. It's pretty neat.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent choice. We're back to John. How are you?
Okay.
What do you got for number 2, man?
Okay, well, full disclosure, I mean, I'm a Who fan for sure, but I don't really dig too deep into it. It's like I know the stuff that I kind of grew up with, and those kind of songs, but then I also know like all the radio songs because just working crappy jobs, listening to rock radio. I mean, they're amazing songs, but I don't know a lot of the early 70s, late 60s albums that well enough to make a proper assessment of them. I just know there's killer songs that I hear on the radio. There's so many bands, and there's one of the bands I never really dug that deep into, which actually after listening to a couple of them now, I'm like, oh, maybe I should, because there's some really amazing stuff. Yeah. But so for my second favorite, it's going to be another odd choice because I just look at it from my perspective of my time, and that's the early 80s. So I have to go with Face Dances. I know it sounds crazy because, the other stuff is so amazing, but songs like You Better You Bet. I mean, I used to rock that song out like crazy. I mean, it was like, that was when I was just thinking about playing guitar, and I just thought that stuff was amazing. That Another Tricky Day. I mean, there's a lot of great songs on that album, and it just represents like early 80s kind of, okay, I was just like dabbling in with a little bit of heavier music, but I was still digging some of the classic rock stuff. And I know it sounds crazy because I know they have great songs from early on, but I just don't know those albums well enough. I never was connected with them, so I have to go with, Face Dances. And I'm proud of it. I have that album in my collection, and I listened to it and I was like, yeah, it brings me back to being, junior high school. I'm down with that. That's a good enough reason to like an album.
Sure.
Yeah, for sure. We're back over to, where am I going? I'm lost here. I think we're back to Lou, right? Lou, you went after John last time around, right?
Yeah, I think, yeah, right. So yeah, this was really tough trying to put them in an order. I mean, a lot of the Who stuff, but there's so much classic stuff. And when I was looking at like what was on what album, just two quick bits. The first, my folks always had music on in the house. So the first, I can remember being like, I don't know, 3 and hearing the song Boris the Spider. And as a kid, I was like, this is cool. Like the way, John sung it, the bass line, the drum. And that actually was one of my first memories of rock radio was the song Boris the Spider and what got me interested in music. Short time, a couple of years later, same thing, driving in my dad's Pinto. Please don't get rear-ended. Driving in Dad's Pinto, hearing the real me, and just noticing drums. Oh my God, I want to play drums, and that's really what made me pick up sticks. Though, then going back to trying to put them in albums, I looking and going, all right, what are the songs that really hit me and how many of them show up on the album? So I'd have to go for my number 2, Who's Next? Because Bargain, Baba O'Reilly, Won't Get Fooled Again, all that stuff, and Keith's playing, and it's so funny, like Bargain being like a radio song, but a minute and 47 seconds of the end of Bargain is Keith going batshit in like double bass. How often is it like a 2-minute drum solo at the end of like a rock radio hit song? And it's almost like he hides it under the music so well, but he's just going bonkers for like 2 minutes at the end of that song. And so I'll have to say definitely Who's Next for my number 2.
Awesome.
There you go.
Great choice. We're back over to David.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you guys with Live at Leeds. I think that's Live at Leeds was an exceptional night for the band, but it was also like a really exceptional night for Keith, because his performance on that album is stellar. Really, it's a good example of certainly what he was capable of, for sure. And the other thing too about Live at Leeds, I just wanted to mention before I forget, is that I don't have any way of confirming this, but I've heard that there was very little post-production work done on an album, which is rare for live albums. I think they may have added backing vocals to it after it was recorded, but I've just heard that. So yeah. I don't know how true it is. I know a lot of live albums get worked on a lot. So
yeah.
But I heard that was one album that did get a lot of work. But for my number 2, because I kind of went with the studio albums, because I agree with Pete. I think the Who was just like, they're a live band for sure. So a lot of my favorite Who albums are the live at Isle of Wight, and even the Hyde Park recording. Live at Hyde Park, which was like 2014 or whatever. But my number 2 studio pick is Quadrophenia, because when I was in a band called Bridges to Quadrophenia, and we did not exclusively Who, but like at least 50% of the Who. Wow. And I've had the pleasure of having to perform some of these songs in front of an audience, and we did team, and there's just exceptional. The songs on that album are that we played, at 5:15. I don't know if I said that or not, but they're really creative, fantastic songs. But the interestingly crafted by Keith. He was, there's a lot that they say he wasn't disciplined, and but you could, learning his parts and listening to the drums on that album, he was a listener. You know what I mean? He crafted some really interesting drum parts. So gonna have to go with the Quadrophenia.
Dave, when were you in that band you were just mentioning?
Oh God, it's probably there were two times when we played. It was early 2000s, and then again we rejoined and regathered and started rehearsing, and then the COVID thing happened. So Bridges to Quadrophenia was we did a set of the Rolling Stones and a set of the Who. So
I'm looking forward for the pandemic to be over so I can come out and catch that. I'd be into that one.
Yeah, well, the Who was like, the other thing too, what was cool about it was we didn't just do only the Who. We also did some solo Pete.
Okay.
And we did Slit Skirts.
Yeah,
good one. Yeah,
awesome song to play on drums. It is just like everything about that song. The drum part is amazing. But it goes to show you, like, even like with Pete's solo stuff, to write a handful of songs that are considered hits or popular or good, is odd. But that guy's been writing songs for decades, and the amount of material, you know, and they're even just like the Who albums. They weren't really put out a lot of albums, but you know what I mean. Just the sheer number of hits that Pete Townsend has written. One of my favorite things to watch is he did a concert in the '90s. So the New York School of Music. The whole concert is on YouTube, and he's got Simon Phillips playing, where he does, you know, the Who stuff and the solo stuff. It's just an exceptional talent, is what he is, really. So, but Quadrophenia, number 2 for me.
Thanks, Dave. We're coming back over to Mr. Will Carroll. Will, how you doing?
Good. My number 2 choice is also Quadrophenia. So since we've already talked about that album, I'm going to tell a quick story about the Who Sell Out that I just remembered. That was the last album I had to get by the Who. I had never heard that album growing up. I heard the first album and everything, but that was the only one I never heard. And I bought it in the Philippines when Death Angel were playing in the Philippines, like maybe 6-7 years ago. There was a mall across the street from our hotel, and me and Ted went over there, and the only album they had in this record store in the Philippines that I knew what it was the Who Sell Out, of all albums, man. It's so weird. And so I bought the CD and I brought it across the street to my hotel room, and I fell in love with it immediately when I heard Armenia, City in the Sky. And I started playing it over and over again. I'm blasting it until Rob Kapastani had to call my room and say, dude, security just came to my room thinking I was blasting music. They're on their way to your room right now, asshole. So, yeah, that was love at first sound for me. But yeah, my second choice is Quadrophenia. It's great.
All right, cool. Look who we got on the room. Somebody just showed up here. Snuck in the back door, and he's here for a short time. He's working on the new Spirits of Fire record. So
I know, 7 million guitars at once. Yeah.
So I guess
who is here?
With Pete, we're gonna let him pop in and just do what he's got to do, and then he'll go back into guitar world.
You know, I actually kind of like this because I get to watch what you guys have to say when it's all over with. So I'm kind of get to watch us when it's done. I mean, I like sitting here and talk with everybody, but I had fun the last time we did that. But yeah, I got to go pretty quick on this because I'm really behind on these, and it's funny because my day always winds up to where I go to get back to work right at the same time where Steve starts doing these things. So I'm trying to make it work. But it was really pretty ironic this week. I'm as far as the records go, pretty much with the Who, I'm kind of evened out on all their records. I love all their music, and I'm kind of really it's really too difficult to me. It's funny. One of my favorite songs, of course, is We Don't Get Fooled Again. But Roger Daltrey, when he came to play with TSO, he didn't want to do We Don't Get Fooled Again. He for some reason, he didn't want to do that particular song. He wanted to do something different. So we did Behind Blue Eyes, and we did See Me, Feel Me, and we did Pinball Wizard, which, you know, Pinball Wizard was actually one of Paul O'Neill's favorite songs too. But it was funny because when Steve was telling me about this, I mentioned that I did that. And I was just looking back to kind of remember what songs we did. And I posted them on my Facebook, one on Sunday and 2 on Monday. And after I did the second one, somebody told me, oh, it's Roger Daltrey's birthday today. So I had no idea that I was posting those videos from 2007 on his birthday. But out of the guests we've had, I think probably behind Steven Tyler or Roger Daltrey was probably my second favorite. He was a sweetheart of a guy, and he was an ultimate pro. He was laughing because I had at that year in that particular TSO tour, I was really making fun of a lot of the arena security. So I had my laminate backwards, which was blank on the back, and I drew my face with the Sharpie and just wrote Chris on it. And I showed it to Roger, and he was cracking up because he watched me get by security with this fake laminate. But we did Nassau Coliseum with him 1 show. We did the Meadowlands with him 2 shows, and my mom got to go to 1, and he met my mom. I have a really good picture with him and my mom and me, and he was a super nice guy. Those moments with that, it speaks for itself, because when you play for an audience like TSO, those people kind of like everybody, you know, that audience likes a lot of different kinds of music, but there was certain special guests that really caught the crowd, And if you watch any of those videos, you could just hear that those people knew every word of every Who song that we did. And it was just one of those really special moments. He signed, I have this white Gibson custom, Les Paul custom. It has all these guests that have signed, and I don't even like to take it out and use it anymore because the signatures are starting to get smudged. So it kind of just sits in a guitar case. Then maybe sometimes if I'm around and we have guests, I was able to bring it out. But since Paul passed, I don't know if we're going to be doing that anymore. But Behind Blue Eyes, which we actually played with him, was one of the first songs I'd ever learned on guitar that I'd played live. So there was a lot of history with that band. I mean, it was funny, you know. It got me even though I didn't have the money, I always wanted to break something when I was on stage. If it wasn't my guitars, I wanted to kick over somebody's drum, something like that came out of them. But they were special and they were different. I mean, their music had this unique personality to it. It was like really human and normal, and it was cool and heavy and musical, and it was just, there was something about the Who that was different. I mean, they kind of sat in their own world, and that's what I really always respected about them. And you know, and unfortunately I never had a chance to see them in their original form, but I did have a chance to see them a couple times since, and it's just a great band. And it's really hard to pick because all of their music is so different. It's really hard to pick any one record because every record kind of has that same bizarre identity inside of it. So it's definitely a difficult band to pick a favorite record. But that See Me Feel Me song was a lot of fun to play live. That song's just really deep, and that I think that one was a Paul choice too. And I think Roger wanted to do Behind Blue Eyes. He really wanted to sing that song, and I was really hoping that we got to do Fooled Again, but you know, that's just because that's, you know, when you're a heavy metal guitar player growing up as a kid, that was one of the first songs you heard on electric guitar, like A Smoke on the Water. It was just one of those really heavy guitar songs, you know. It was like before metal really became big. You always heard that one and that riff. So a lot of different moments, but you know, I'm sure that everybody here once again has picked a lot of what I have as favorites, but it was definitely one of these things that I know that I don't think I'll top. I couldn't stop watching him. A lot of the special guests we have on stage, you could see me kind of watching the audience. A lot of the times when Roger was there, I was pretty much watching him being next to me because I'm like, shit, this is Roger fucking Daltrey. It's just kind of one of those weird, surreal situations when you got to play with him. But yeah, and it's probably part of the reason why I'm deaf, because I was always, you know, louder. But I don't think it's anything to be proud of. That's probably one of the things I have most in common with Pete Townsend is his tinnitus.
And you never even played with Manowar.
No. But you know what, Townsend has really bad tinnitus from the loud stage volume.
Yeah,
they were very loud on stage.
Yeah,
they were a loud stage band, and his tinnitus is really, really bad.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, thanks, Chris, for hopping in tonight. I'll pick your favorite albums for you so you can watch them in the morning if you want.
Yeah, no, you do that. You tell me what I like, and that's the way I'll figure it out tomorrow. I'm gonna go back to doing guitars. I don't know if you guys know Mark Saunders, the drummer for this thing, and he's a really, really, really great drummer. He plays different than a lot of drummers. So when I'm learning, he would play to my songs. If I was to play my parts the way I recorded them, it's not really the way it needs to be. So the first Spirits of Fire record, he recorded his drums after my guitars were done. This one, I'm doing all my rhythm guitars after his drums are done, so I can marry his fills and make those parts come alive. And then if there's certain things that were in the groove that I think disappeared where the drums got off with me in the groove, I'm making the groove fit. And it's just a lot of work because he's so intricate. So, and no offense, but no drummer's ever dead on with the click, and neither is any guitar player. So if I recorded to the click and not him, I'd be slightly off. So I'm recording to him without a click. And it's a lot of fun, but it's a lot of work because there's some stuff that I'm playing along with that's out of left field. And I'm trying to writing and learning parts at the same time. So it's a lot of fun, He's a great drummer, but it's definitely more challenging than your straight four drummers or your drum machine. So
Well, good luck with all that project, and we can't wait to hear the finished product when it comes out.
absolutely. Thank you guys. Have a good night. Good to see you. Sorry, I'll be by to ruin your talking more next time.
All right, we'll bring you back next week. I think it's Judas Priest. So.
Oh, geez, I only know 700 stories for that one. So.
All right, we'll have you back for next week. So
all right, awesome.
have some
See you
fun.
guys. Bye.
All right, Mr. Pardo, we're back to you. You got preempted by.
All right. I think I deserve a prize though, because I predicted Caffrey would jump on about 9:25. And 2 minutes after that, right?
Maybe I can get him to come on the Hudson Valley Squares one week for you. That's your prize.
That's already happening.
Oh, good. Him and Butch can go back and forth for an hour. Right.
Oh.
That'll be a 3-hour episode.
I know, right?
Square, so warn Martin if he plans on coming on that night.
All right, my number. We're up to number 2, right? Yeah. So my number two again. This could be my number 1 any other day, but it's got to be who's next in the equation somehow. One of you other guys mentioned it's pretty much a perfect album, and it is. It's a Desert Island Disc celebrating its 50th birthday this year. So many great songs. It's just amazing what Townsend was doing, from a songwriting perspective around this time. And it's just a great sounding album, and it's got the hits. The deep album cuts are legendary. It's classic stuff. And I do want to mention it because I think, especially some of our drummers here had touched on it. If you watch like that old footage of the Who, like in the late 60s, early 70s, whether it be at Woodstock or Isle of Wight or, any of the other big places they played that you can see video of, there was and you don't see this with a lot of bands, there was this synergy between Moon and Townsend. It's not often you get like the guitarist and the drummer kind of playing and feeding off of each other. Usually it's, the drummer and the bass player, but here it's like Moon is always looking at Townsend. Townsend is always looking at Moon. And that's like such a unique thing in rock and roll history. And I think that when Moon died, I think that was really lost in this band. Like Kenny Jones, fine drummer, but he wasn't, for me anyway, the perfect fit that Moon was. And I think that edge that they had, that little bit of danger that they carried when Moon was in the band was kind of lost a little bit.
One thing I wanted to bring up is that, I heard that he was, it sounds wrong, but he was like happy that Moon was gone at an interview before. Have you ever heard that?
I've heard that. I've totally heard that.
He took a lot of shit.
That was really strange.
He took a lot of shit for saying that. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think maybe because he had control or something.
Yeah, and I think having Moon in the band probably was very high maintenance, because obviously Moon had. If
you want to go back and read some of the stories and some of the tales of the Keith Moon adventures, yes, for sure.
Yeah, if you want to read a great book on Keith Moon, read the book called Moon. It's really good. It's a huge book. It's so good. I read it. I mean, what a complex.
I think Pete Townsend was talking more from like a musical standpoint, that he was glad that Keith Moon was gone because Kenny Jones was such a reliable drummer and
totally in the pocket, right?
If you will.
Yeah.
So it's almost like it wasn't quite as daring or on the edge as Keith Moon, which people liked about him. But it makes sense as a songwriter. You want someone that's going to be controlled and in the pocket at the same time.
Totally.
So taking a horse tranquilizer before you play is not not exactly high on scientific.
That happened in San Francisco at the Cow Palace.
Cow Palace.
Really?
Video of that.
I've seen it. I've seen the guy come up there, the fan, and he's like warming up and stuff. Yeah, I've seen it.
Wow. He took a horse tranquilizer at the Cow Palace. That's quite the animal connection we had there.
Right off his drum seat. He was just like out.
Yeah, I mean, he was just, he played. So we're talking about how he created so many iconic things, but two, you even listen to some of the studio recordings and watch some of those iconic studio videos. He still messes up in those and I think that's what Pete's really talking about. Listen to the end of Boris the Spider. He stops the song about 4 bars before the rest of the band comes back in and finishes it, but they were probably like, that was take 59. Fuck it, keep it. So
Yeah, I mean, if you listen to the live version of I think My Wife on the Kids All Right, Keith Moon's miscuing all over the place. Like all the parts where the rest of the band stops, he'll go boom. I know there'll be an extra snare hit, like, you know.
Cool. You got any more to add to
Yeah,
your
sorry to
number
interrupt.
2, or you're good?
Now go for it, Martin.
No,
I think
I'm
it's
going.
Steve
It's
now.
my turn
Steve,
again
sorry,
now.
sorry.
I gotta go, then it's Martin. So I'm finishing my number 2, then we're going to number 1 with Martin. Number 2
Been a
for
long
me
day,
is
Steve, sorry.
also, no, that's all right. We get mixed up sometimes. I know it happens to you sometimes too on your show. Especially on Mondays, everybody gets chatting, and then you're like, wait a minute. Now, my number 2 is also Quadrophenia. The notables that I love on there, of course, The Real Me is like one of the best songs ever. The song Quadrophenia is good. I've Had Enough, 515, Seeing Sand. I'm naming off the whole album when I pick this up. Bellboy, like when that song starts, like Keith drumming to start that song, it just rules. He just comes into that real heavy, like, you know, aggressive start to that song. And of course, Dr. Jimmy, I've always loved that song just from back when I never even had the record, when I just hear that on the radio. I am sure that's a song that's probably not very politically correct and probably wouldn't be able to get played on radio nowadays without everything that's going on in the world.
Nope.
Show, you know, with the rape references and stuff, but it's a great song. And of course, the instrumental Rock, which builds into the iconic Love, Rain on Me. I mean, that whole flow of that album, it's my number 2 record. And I don't think I have any more notes on that album. I'm lost here. Oh yeah, no. Heading to the next one after this. So I'm done, and we're back to Martin. We're moving
All
through.
right. Yeah, I just wanted to say one more thing generally about The Who. I did an episode of my History in 5 Songs thing, and I think it was called Bands of Individuals, and The Who are the first band I always think of that way. It's not a band that sounds like a band all with one purpose, like Metallica, for example, right?
Yeah.
You've got a hollering lead singer who's like a blonde guy. You've got Pete with this super kind of soft voice. You've got a bass player who's a you know, a soloing bass player all the time. He's a Lemmy and a Geddy Lee or whatever, all wrapped up into one. Chris Squire. You've got this drummer we've talked about way over here, and you've got Pete doing acoustic all the way up to feedback and noise and stabbing sounds and like just kind of making a lot of racket and not really even playing a lot of riffs. So when I did this Band of Individuals thing, The Who had always reminded me of a band that all sounds like they're playing in the 4 corners of a very large room. It doesn't sound like one machine. It sounds like, but like when Chris said human, that's exactly what I think of. It sounds like a band of people rather than like, you know, Metallica, Ride the Lightning, go, right? You know, everybody in one direction forward, right? So they're literally just like all in their own universe doing all that stuff. I just wanted to mention that. So I'm going to go full John on this one because I have a very similar relationship to The Who. I do love It's Hard, but it's not my first choice. We just did an episode of The Contrarians where we have to pick a very odd choice for an album that's your favorite and talk about it and defend it. And I went with this one. Face Dances. This was my entry to The Who because before that I was huge into music, but The Who were not heavy enough. They weren't heavy metal enough or punk rock enough, and they seemed like big rock stars and they seemed like mean people, and the music sounded a little ragged and not well put together like our Aerosmith and Ted Nugent albums, right? So The Who kind of, you know, it took me to get away from hard rock, and this was the first one where I kind of got into that. And I like the production. I like Kenny's drumming. He's the polite, sober Keith Moon, right? I love there's lots and lots of Pete Townsend lyrics on here and tons of great lines. You Better You Bet was a great single. Don't Let Go, the Code I really liked on this. Cash Cash, How Can You Do It Alone? Daily Records is my favorite song. So I like my Who pretty polite and poppy and mellow. And I have no problem picking this. And as I say, I had to defend it for 20 minutes on our episode that we just put up. So there you go. Face dances.
Yeah, I watched that episode, Martin, so I have no idea
thanks.
where you were coming from tonight.
Yeah, yeah.
And Pete was like, really? Really?
I know it's nuts. I know. And man, this is very close too. I would have to probably pick this as my fourth because like I say, I went through Quadrophenia and I wanted to love it. And I got the massive box set of it. Right. And I love the story. I just did an episode called The Mod Revival. I love that whole mod thing. Right.
Yeah.
But I just like thinking, it's creepy, old, weird, rainy Who, you know, and I need a little cheering up with my Who, you know,
Rainy Who. Rainy Who.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little creepy, Dr. Jimmy.
Yeah.
Hey, well, thanks for your input tonight, Martin. It was a pleasure to have you on the show, and hopefully we can do it again and have you back for some other things. But
sure.
We're going to move on for John for his number one.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that statement that some of the older stuff, it was just, I don't know, it just didn't fit in the pocket at the time, you know, like, because when I heard this stuff, it was late 70s, early 80s. And I don't know, I wanted to be a little more together. Actually, that thing about them, like four guys in the room, you know, playing, you know, opposite sides of the room is actually a really great way to explain it. And I think it's something you just have to like learn to understand, or maybe, you know, after a while, once you learn music, you kind of understand the genius of it. But at the time, I mean, I didn't know nothing. I just knew I should probably like the Who because, you know, Pete Townsend smashes guitars and he does some cool chords and stuff here and there. And, you know, for like a 10-year-old kid or something, that's, you know, perfectly legit reason to like a band. Kind of probably why I liked Kissers, you know, early on too, you know, because they were over the top and whatnot. But it's like that whole say 73-ish era, to me, a lot of it really meshes together because that's like a lot of the stuff I hear on rock radio. So it was like really difficult to pick what album from that time period I like the best because, you know, there's choice cuts that I'm familiar with, but I never really sat down and listened to those full albums. It almost felt like I didn't have to for some reason, because you just know these songs. Like even when I would watch them live, even when I was younger around that time, you just knew those songs. Like they were just part of rock radio DNA or something.
Oh yeah.
But I would have to say probably the album that made the biggest impact on me was the Tommy album. I remember, I mean, it must have been pretty young, like 9 or 10, maybe. It was right at the time I was really into Kiss, maybe even 8. I don't remember. I bought the single for Pinball Wizard, and holy crap, that was the coolest riff on that one. Just the way that the, you know, kind of the cleaner guitars picked with those heavier guitar notes in there, and just the way it ends. You know, it changes right at the end. It's still kind of the same riff, but I don't know, it changes a little bit to some like different notey things, different accent and notey things. It's just a really amazing song. It's like a simple song too, but it just has that, like, I don't know. That was like one of the songs that I really, as a kid, I connected to with the Who. Yeah. I just remember listening to that all the time. Then I, you know, heard the album. The album was a little complex for me at the time, and I actually never owned the album, but I've watched the movie numerous times, so I kind of knew some of the songs, and it has great, I mean, a bunch of amazing songs on an album. I mean, it's a stellar album. But it's really, one of the few old ones that I actually kind of know, you know, well enough to even make a, you know, a proper judgment call. You know, Quadrophenia has amazing songs on it, but as a full album, I don't know it well enough to like, you know, say, okay, is the whole album great? I don't know. It's I'm sure it is, but I just don't have that connection with it. You know, I mean, I love, you know, songs off Tommy, like Christmas is a great song.
Yeah, it is.
You know, it's a whole bunch. Yeah, this is really too many, but like, especially a Pinball Wizard, that one just really, that was the one that hit me. And actually, I was kind of a little bummed out because I think at that time, when I listened to other Who songs, none of them were like that aggressive, at least the ones that I heard at the time. So I was a little bit, I never really got into it further. You know, it was kind of like the more at that time, the more stuff that was kind of really, you know, rocking was the stuff I wanted to get into, or, you know, or say borderline heavy metal, hard rock kind of stuff. I did think that they were a little bit too, maybe it was too sophisticated almost, because I listened to Tommy just recently preparing for the show, and it's like it's such a sentimental album. I mean, it totally, you could totally tell where you know, you would call it Pink Floyd, when Pink Floyd came up with the idea of you know, doing The Wall. I mean, there's British accents to both those albums that just sound so British. It just has, it almost gives me a little bit of that same vibe to it. Even though the music style is different, it just has that same kind of like, I don't know, a stiff upper lip kind of vibe. I don't know what it's called, but I just know when I hear it, that British, I don't know if it's cockiness. I don't know what the right word is for it, but it just gives me that vibe. But yeah, I mean, that's the album that I have to pick as my number one. I mean, I'm not super defined as far as, you know, I don't know the discography well enough. I'm sure there's better albums, but for me, that's
Maybe
my
not.
opinion.
Maybe not. Maybe not. We'll see if I might be picking something similar to you at the end. So Lou, back to you.
Yeah, and yeah, thanks. This has been a blast, guys. I'm gonna pretty much continue John's conversation there, because my number one would definitely have to be Tommy. You know, for all the reasons that anybody who's mentioned Tommy tonight, yes, that over again. And I've always, you know, I'm a comic book and story geek too. So the whole thought of marrying a story with an album was just marvelous to me as a kid. And then seeing the film, I really thought the film was great. I loved, I always thought the song on the album, Acid Queen, was cool, but then seeing it in the movie where they rocked it up and Tina sung it was like,
Tina Turner,
oh yeah, this is what this song is supposed to be. So like, yeah, Tommy, for so many reasons. Pinball Wizard, Keith's drum, that drum pattern Keith does with the double bass little drop and the cymbal crash on the offbeat, like, what, I wouldn't put the cymbal there, but Keith does, and it works, and it just makes that part of that song. I mean, there's just so many things about Tommy. I can just, you know, Christmas. That song Christmas. You know, I work with the kids at School of Rock, so when we do Who shows, I'm like, you're doing Christmas, and the kids look at me like, this is the weirdest song ever. I have to sing what? Just do it. It'll be great. So yeah, definitely. You know, Tommy is just for the concept album, for the songs, the hits, the epics, just everything about it, and everything echoing everything all of you guys have said who've mentioned it as well. That's easily my number one, but putting the rest of the stuff in order was tough.
Yeah, okay, great. Thanks, Lou. Back over to Dave. What do we got number one with you, sir?
Number one for me is, I think it's a perfect album, you know, from beginning to end. There's not a, you know, every song on this, there's no weak link on this album at all. From Bob O'Reilly to like those two songs is pretty crazy. You know, it's a great album. 71, right?
Yeah,
it was the second to last album, but yeah, it's just, you know, and you know, again, a lot of these songs I've had an opportunity to play them, and Bob O'Reilly, I still like. I get anxiety listening to it, because when we did it, he had the sequence keyboard part and had to wear headphones. But at one point, when the song breaks and there's the Pete vocal breakdown point, that's, you know, it's one of those things about the band also too. I wanted to mention is that with Pete singing and Roger singing, they had vastly different voices, but they made it work, you know. And it was a nice way that they broke up the music by having Pete sing all that stuff. But anyway, we were performing Bob O'Reilly, and during he switched with the downbeat during that break. So, you know, it's just to try and save that, you know, live. it's anxiety inducing. But no, I think who's next, or who's next is without a doubt. As far as studio albums go, it's about as perfect as you can get. Lou, do you know if Keith always had Premier drums?
No, he played a couple different, his for the later part of the career Premier, but he's played, I've seen him on Slingerland, and I believe even Rogers early on. I think I saw him on a Rogers kit.
Yep.
Well, I know that the Neil Peart kit that he had made was slightly influenced by one of Keith's drum sets.
Yeah.
Right. The design.
Yeah. Keith was Neil's big influence, and the pictures based a lot of his stuff off the pictures of Lily kit.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Wow.
It'd be funny if Keith Moon's endorsement with Premier is what put him out of business. What are you doing today? We're making another drum set for Keith. I don't know if that's what happened, but it's funny if it was.
So would you, Dave, with you playing some of the Who's material, what was one of the hardest? You just said you got anxiety from playing from that one song, but what is like the hardest song or the most challenging song that you covered?
Well, without a doubt, I Won't Get Fooled Again is a cardio workout.
Okay.
You know, I don't exactly, you know, I'm not a cardio guy, you know, so it is. It's like you're done with that song, and it's like, you know, how about you guys do something a cappella for a while? Give me a chance to get some oxygen. But see him saying, you know what was really hard was a quick one. It's a really long song. There's a lot of different parts to it. It completely changes in the middle of it. I'm trying to remember now because it's been so long since I played it.
There you go.
That's a workout too. A lot of those songs are like, they're a lot tougher than you think they would be when you start playing. No doubt about it. You know, you listen to it and it's like, hey, you can do that. Then you try and play it and it's like, I guess I need to practice this a little more because it's a lot harder than it sounded.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, thanks for your input tonight, Dave. And we're moving over to Will Carroll for his #1 record.
I just want to go back to what Dave said about playing a quick one. I have a cover band with my 2 older brothers, and we used to play a quick one when we first started out, and it is a really hard song to pull off, man. There's a lot of peaks and valleys in that tune, and definitely, man, it's a trip. Nowadays we do Success Story. That's one of my favorite Who songs, and we do the version that John Entwistle did on one of his live albums when he had Simon Phillips on drums. So there's tons of double bass in that version. Fun songs are on double bass too. But anyways, my favorite Who album is kind of like how John said he loved It's Hard and Face Dances, because that's when he was first getting into the Who and stuff. So for me, my favorite Who album is Who Are You? That's when I first heard the Who. My older siblings brought the album home. One of them brought it home. I was only like 5 years old, maybe, and it made a huge impression on me. I love that album. I think it's perfect. Every single song is top notch. Trick of the Light is one of my favorite Who songs. There's some really heavy stuff on there, actually. For some reason, that album gets kind of mocked. I don't know why, but I've read people like putting that album down or giving it a bad review. But I think it holds up. I think it's as good as Who's Next. I mean, I think it holds up. So that's my favorite. I wanted to do a couple of honorable mentions.
Okay.
I have a ton of Who bootlegs I've been collecting for years now, and this one I just got recently. It's a German compilation, but look at the cover though. It looks like a cover that fucking I don't know, like a satanic, like it looks like the next Incantation album cover.
like incantation mixed with like some yes or something. It looks like.
But it's a bizarre record. Like it has some live stuff. It has a 13-minute version of Who Are You? I mean, excuse me, a Magic Bus. It's this really killer one. And then this one I got recently. This is a pretty significant concert because it's the one in Cincinnati when those people got trampled.
Oh.
So it's called Stampede. So it's a total bad taste, but I had to get it.
God. Stampede.
And
Very
that
tasteless
concert's interesting. They on that tour they reworked a lot of the old 60s Who songs. So like I Can't Explain has a totally different arrangement. And Kenny Jones does a really good job on that live recording. It's much better than an official live album they put out called Who's Last. I didn't like that live album at all. I thought it was terrible, and the drums are really flaccid. But his performance on this bootleg is really, really top notch, man. Killer.
Excellent.
And I just want to say to Martin, I love your books. And
thanks, Will.
John, I finally picked up a Sect of Vile Divinities, and it's fucking awesome, man. It's great.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, that just came back
I like your
out
books
on
too, Martin.
Thanks very much.
that
man. I just finished your second BOC book. Was it Agents of Fortune? Is that your second one?
Yeah. It's kind of just a redo of the first one, but there's also a coffee table book now. And now I've got a really weird Imaginos, the occult origins of World War I coming out. So
awesome, man.
Barely even a music book. Really isn't. It's just an Imaginos Sandy Pearlman wacky book. So
that sounds interesting then. Sounds interesting. Mr. Pardo, I guess we're back to if Will is done. I didn't want to cut you off.
I'm done.
All right.
Yeah, wait, I got one more story.
All right, one more story. Let's do it.
I went to the first Who show after John Entwistle died. It was only 2 nights after he died. Can you believe that? Like, he died in Vegas, and their next show was in Mountain View, California, which is the Bay Area. And yeah, it was just really, really, really eerie. And at the end of the show, they had a moment of silence, and they showed like a collage, like a montage thing of John Entwistle's life, and it was very, very moving. But that night, we partied extra hard because John would have wanted it that way. That's what we were saying all night, man. We were doing shots, doing lines. After we do a line, we'd go, "Hey, man, John would want it that way."
Wow, I tell you, I mean, that's something just moving like, that's almost like the story we had a couple weeks ago where Vinny Appice was on the road with Black Sabbath in case Bill Ward got sick or whatever.
Right.
And ready to roll his drum set out on the stage. I mean, the Who didn't miss a beat. I mean, I guess Skinner has been a little guilty of things like that over the years too.
They hit Pino Palladino on bass, right away. Yep. Is that who did that concert?
Yep. Well, oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he's on.
He is fantastic. At that show too, they did an abbreviated version of Who Are You. They cut out the whole bass solo breakdown part. I mean, I don't know if they just did that out of respect or what, but it was a very short version of Who Are You. Still a good show, though. Still a good show.
Well, that was a very historic event for you to be at, Will.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I couldn't believe the show was still happening. I mean,
yeah. Like, it wasn't like they were expecting John to pass away, I don't think.
Yeah, right.
It wasn't like a situation with Bill Ward where he's like going crazy or ready to walk up to the set. But
well, I mean,
John
like the Who already had that guy on the road with him in case something happened to John. They saw it coming. That backup bass player was ready to go because I guess they knew he was still partying and just his health and his age. They kind of assumed it was like gonna happen sooner than later, and it did.
Did he still have a little of that stuff left? Yeah. Did he go up to the room with that chick? Yeah. Shit. Call Pino.
Yeah.
He passed away at the Hard Rock Hotel Casino in Las Vegas, I believe, right?
Yep.
Because I used to stay at that hotel a lot over the years. But anyhow, Pete Pardo, you are our final number one next to me. So,
All right. Well, I do want to say I saw the Madison Square Garden show a week after your show, Will.
Okay.
And I've seen the Who many times. That was by far their best performance. It's almost like they had something to prove, and they were just giving it 150% just to pay tribute to John. I mean, they were loud. Pete was like tearing it up on the guitar, and they play like every song you'd want to hear. It was really memorable, and everybody was just totally into it. So yeah, that was very cool. My number one is gotta be Tommy, Can You Hear Me? I mean, this is like just an amazing concept album, rock opera, whatever you want to call it. And it's just so cool to listen to. It's so fun. There's so many iconic songs on here. From the Acid Queen, Fiddle About is so much fun. John mentioned Pinball Wizard, and the whole ending See Me Feel Me thing is like one of my favorite kind of sequences in all the music, and I love it from the Woodstock film. Right, I just love their performance of the Tommy album at Woodstock. And if you ever get a chance to check out, I think it was released officially like a couple of years ago, but the entire Who performance at Woodstock is really, really good. Considering they were all tripping on acid, because Jerry Garcia apparently like dosed all of their drinks, and they were peaking on acid right before they went on stage. But the cool thing is, like, they're playing See Me Feel Me just as the sun is coming up in the morning, because they played in the middle of the night, and it's just an amazing visual, and the band were so good. So yeah, that's my favorite. I love this album, always have. And I do want to mention a couple of live things here. And I also have a recommendation for John. So Live at the Fillmore East, 1968, a really good raw performance. I mean, have you ever heard a bad Fillmore East performance that's been released? I mean, of any band, but it's got like a 33-minute version of My Generation, which was their big jammy tune early on in their career. And then for those of you who love the Live at Leeds stuff, got to check out Live at Hull. So it's Hull City Hall, which was, I believe, the night before or the night after the Leeds show. It's just as lethal as Live at Leeds. It's basically the same set list, and this has it's 2 discs, and it's got the entire Tommy and all, Heaven and Hell, Can't Explain, Fortune Teller, Tattoo, so on and so forth. But really, really good. They just released this a couple years ago. But John, what I wanted to say, if you're interested in like kind of, maybe trying to get into some of the older stuff, the first Who album I ever bought actually was the soundtrack to the Kids Are All Right film, the documentary film. The soundtrack is killer.
It is.
Yeah.
Got good sampling, live stuff, studio stuff, rarities, and just like some of their better known tracks on there. And it's a great retrospective of like from like 1965 through right up to the Who Are You album. Really,
Awesome.
really good.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I would have to agree 100%. That was also the album Who Are You and Kids Are Right kind of came out around the same time.
Yeah.
And those were the 2 albums that got me into the Who. And I was, Kids Are Right is a fantastic soundtrack and movie. It's perfect.
Yeah, definitely is.
Yeah.
All right, Pete, are
Well,
you
thank
all
you very much,
finished
Pete.
down there?
That's
Pete?
it for me. Yeah.
All right, so I mean, the Who at Woodstock, you were talking about their situation going on in acid, but they were like, if you go back to 1969, which I can because I'm old enough. No, I was only 8 years old, but I mean, if you look back on that concert, they were one of the heaviest bands at Woodstock, if not the heaviest. And that time period, they were really a heavy band back then. And my number one is also the story of the deaf, dumb, and blind kid that plays pinball. And being around pinball all my life, that album makes a lot of sense how they portrayed like Tommy being this like autistic kid, like they couldn't speak or hear, but it seemed like he could see things at times. It was almost like kids now in the spectrum of autism. And I see that all the time in pinball tournaments and stuff where they get up and they will excel at playing the game competitively and being part in it. And it makes a lot of sense to me, that whole movie does, in a weird way, just because of that. And I'm part of a charity that puts pinballs in children's hospitals, projectpinball.org. You can check that out. And I think the album just holds more weight. And I mean, I love this album anyhow. I can listen to this album repeatedly. It never gets old to me. It's just brilliance. And I also love the film, which someone else was mentioning earlier. I can echo that with Anne Margaret and Roger Daltrey. Of course, they came out with the Bally pinball machine Wizard that has Roger on the back. A great artwork on the back with him and Anne Margaret. And what else can you say from top to bottom? The opening track, Overture, other notables. I love that song, The Amazing Journey, Sparks, Eyesight to the Blind. That song, Christmas, is always so cool. The Acid Queen, of course, the Pinball Wizard. Go to the Mirror, and Tommy, Can You Hear Me? And I'm Free, and We're Not Gonna Take It. I mean, it just doesn't get any better than that to me. I never got into the older stuff like Martin and John did. I think at that time, I was listening to heavier stuff and put them aside just because it was like the early 80s, and I was probably more into like Iron Maiden and Saxon and, the heavier end of stuff, how we all differ in music because of things like that, We were talking about that on the Rush episode a few weeks ago, how some of us didn't listen to that late 80s Rush because we were listening to Slayer and Creator and stuff like that by then. So it's all, I'd like to thank everyone for coming on tonight to the show. And if you would like to if you like the content of this, please hit subscribe, and then you'll find out exactly what we've got going on. We've got plenty of great shows. John's been doing a lot of solo interviews. And if anybody on here would like, the center square tonight was Will Carroll on my screen. But Martin, if anybody wants to plug anything they've got going on and what's coming up on Pete's channel, feel free to do it right now.
Well, I don't know. I'd say go to martinpopoff.com for any of the books that are in print, and there's PayPal buttons there for everything. That's it.
Excellent. Pete,
I want to say your Motorhead book was good.
Oh, thanks.
I really dug that.
Pete, what do you got coming up on Sea of Tranquility channel?
Let's see, all sorts of stuff. So I got a couple shows with Martin this week. We had one this morning. We got one Friday. A lot of really fun topics. I just interviewed Barry Goodrow, former guitar player from Boston, literally 2 hours ago. So that's up on the channel. I'm talking to Todd from Queensryche next week. We got the Hudson Valley Squares coming up on Monday. All sorts of stuff every day in the month of March. We're doing Dream Set List programs, which is basically I'm picking a band that I love and kind of thinking of a certain time in their history and picking out what I would love to see as a set list, the perfect set list, maybe a set that they'd never played before, songs that they'd never played before with other songs that maybe they have or whatever, full album size, the whole 9 yards. So that's happening every day on the channel. So
Awesome.
That and all sorts of stuff. So come on over, subscribe, Sea of Tranquility, just search for it here on the channel, and a lot of fun.
And so, John, you've got something special we're doing tomorrow on the Rock Fantasy Files with the band Venom Inc.
Yep. Yeah, Venom tomorrow, which is super big influence on myself. Probably everybody that likes metal, death metal, black metal, thrash, I guess anything. So really excited for that. And yeah, we have a couple other cool ones coming up, a couple of more classic heavy metal stuff like Nasty Savage coming up. We're working on Dark Angel,
We have
a Canadian 80s thrash episode too. Just a bunch of different stuff that I'm kind of into or know a little bit about, and just want to have fun talking about stuff we enjoy.
Yeah, tomorrow I actually have an interview along with Robin Mason, who's a regular on the channel, with Prika from Nervosa. And I love the new Nervosa record, Perpetual Chaos. If you've heard Nervosa in the past, they've come back and they're a whole new band now, and with a great new lineup. And I just can't stop listening to that record. It's like my #1 album of this year so far, I think. Pretty much.
Yeah, I didn't hear the whole thing, but the few songs I heard were killer.
And who do we have on from Venom tomorrow? You have someone from Venom Inc., correct?
Yeah, well, we have Tony, a Demolition Man, on there, and we're trying for Mantis, but I don't know if it's going to happen or not.
Okay.
It's hopefully.
So it's Will. You're the center square tonight. So you said to say goodbye. You're giving the last. We're gonna get out of here with you tonight.
Well, you want me just to say what I'm up to, or just
go ahead.
just jamming with Death Angel. I have a new band with Matt Harvey from Exhumed called Scarecrow.
Wow.
We We just got signed, and we're gonna record a full length. We have an EP coming out in like a month. We're gonna record a full length in a couple of months. It's total injustice for all worship, complete injustice for all worship. Yeah. So I got that going on, and check out my radio show on GimmeMetal.com. My show is called The Fool Metal Jacket. It's every Monday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in tonight. I hope you enjoyed the show, and please comment your favorite Who albums, your favorite Who songs, your favorite Who concerts, your Who moments in the comments, and hit like and support all the bands. And thanks to everyone for coming on tonight.
Thank